Hello, listeners. This episode was recorded a few weeks ago, before the worldwide protests against police brutality in the United States. It may seem flippant or inappropriate to publish a podcast about video games right now, but I'm selfishly doing so. We are not quitting. You might be listening in June 2020 or much later, but it's never the wrong time to stand up for what's right. Black Lives Matter. Hello and welcome to episode 239 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans off-topic podcast of many weeks. Wait, no, that's wrong. It's RPG fans weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Mike Sollosi. And I'm joined here today by four panelists for a very special episode that will take some explaining. But let's introduce before the explaining happens, starting with Stephanie Sybydlo.
Hello!
Also Alana Hagues.
Hey!
And Zach Wilkerson.
Howdy.
And newcomer Nicholas Whaley.
Hello.
Alright, Nicholas, Zach, Alana, Steph. The five of us are here for something we haven't really tried before. In fact, the episode most similar to this might be the Essential 10 podcast that I never want to record ever again.
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah. No!
But let me get to a roundabout way of explaining how this works. Everyone, I miss sports. I'm a sports fan who loves watching basketball while I'm playing a handheld RPG on my 3DS, and I
Last Dance can only do so much.
Yeah, exactly. And the Last Dance and watching Yellicle's marble runs on YouTube are only so much. So, look, we're going to create our very own sporting event just for the times we live in, quote unquote. I already feel bad for saying that. With an idea that was originally yours, Steph, we're going to hold a tournament to determine the best console for playing RPGs. All right. I have
a few of these. They end in anger.
Oh yeah, oh no,
a bunch
no.
of sad panelists.
We are gonna make each other upset, definitely. In fact, I already have some people in mind for how this is gonna go. But
N64 will be included. Damn it.
Sorry, that ship has already sailed.
See, the anger already comes to a teeming medium boil.
Right. Sure. So anyway, we have a list of 16 consoles, and we're going to have a tournament pitting them against each other, basically sets of mini debates. Which console is a better console to play RPGs on, and we're going to work. We're going to work through this tournament style until we have an overall winner. And Steph, we have some considerations to make ahead of time, and one of them is the PC is not on the list. We are not including PC because it is not quote unquote a console technically, and also it would have 40 years of catalog to work through, which is not really the same spirit of a time limited console library. So PC is officially the host console of this podcast since it's being recorded on a PC and is not competing for a title.
So what you're saying is that it's the true winner.
Yeah.
No, it is going to officially shake and raise the hand of the eventual winner. It is the host nation, the host team.
Okay.
Yeah, well, how about the Dolphin and ZSNES?
All right, how about the Mister? How about Capcom CPS2 arcade software?
Ooh.
I had to ignore them too. Yes, spoiler alert, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, not an RPG. But all right, anyway... Back to the considerations. I'm also going to ask you, please try to avoid putting too much weight into a console's online library. Try to focus on the native library of RPGs for each console. So, we know that the PS2 can play all the PS1 games. So, when we're arguing PS2 versus other consoles, focus on the games made for PS2 and not the PS1, because otherwise then the Vita and the PS4 might be the two winners of this bracket, which is not something I would have predicted or anticipated.
What about virtual consoles where it retroactive?
Also avoid considering those. The Wii Virtual Console is excellent, But if we were to consider it, then we would have the Wii with all of its Wii games plus most of the best Super Nintendo, N64, NES RPGs. But that's something we're trying to avoid. Focus on the native RPGs made for that console, and also the form factor. Like, if you think that playing a game on a 3DS is super fun and great, more so than playing games on a Switch, then you can consider that. But when we talk about the libraries of each game during these arguments, focus on the native games for that console. Do all four of you follow?
I got it.
Maybe, but yes.
Yes.
All right, works for me. Have a little bit of argument with each matchup, and then come down to a vote. And because there's 5 of us, there will be no ties. I think we should get on with it. But first, there is a special first round to discuss. I mentioned that there were 16 slots, and 16 consoles. That's a lie. I made 17 because in the tradition of the NCAA basketball tournament, which always has 64 slots in the main tournament, but typically 65 or 68 competing teams, because there's a sort of a pre-game, an opening matchup to place the first couple teams, which is a little bit against the spirit of the tournament, but also weird enough that I decided to replicate it for here. So we're having a very special first round matchup to determine seed number 16, and determine which console places last, I guess. So the first two we're going to discuss are the Sega Dreamcast and the Nintendo Wii.
Oh.
So, the Sega Dreamcast, around the late 90s, early 2000s, a few standout games include Grandia 2 and Skies of Arcadia, and had some of the earliest online features for many consoles. And the Nintendo Wii, Nintendo's, I think, second most successful console ever, whether it's just ahead or just behind the Nintendo DS, I'm not sure. Among its signature games include The Last Story and Xenoblade Chronicles.
Oh.
So, Dreamcast or Wii for the first matchup. Alana, what are your early thoughts?
Okay.
Oh, that's cruel.
I don't actually rate the Wii as an RPG console, really. So, I don't like The Last Story, which is a bit controversial, probably.
I had to play that for the podcast, and I was a little done with it by the end. I think it's a little... it's not a favorite of mine either.
I mean, Xenoblade is super special, but I mean, there's one game in particular you may have mentioned, for one console, that might trump it. But I think thinking about the Dreamcast, you mentioned online play, and this is the first console MMO, Phantasy Star Online. I think that's a big thing. Like, regardless of whether you like that game or not, that is a massive thing, and there are people still playing that thing today on their own servers. And
that's crazy that the GameCube and Dreamcast Phantasy Star games still have online play.
Right. And I adore Xenoblade, but Xenoblade is going to be on Switch as well. So I have no qualms in saying that Xenoblade and the Wii can go, and the Dreamcast can stay.
It literally says it in the title. The definitive edition's coming out in a week. Definitely by the time this airs, So, I think you're kind of right. Like, I remember I had to do a graphic for Wii RPGs, and I was really struggling to find the best ones to represent it because they were all kind of.
I think the reason that I sort of had these be my 16 seeds, I numbered each of the competing consoles in this list a little bit slipshod. It took me like 4 minutes, but that's just sort of my early judgments. So, ultimately, whatever wins the vote wins the vote.
Fire Emblems.
Yeah, but only one Fire Emblem, the Radiant Dawn, which is I don't think one of the better ones. But really, I thought the Dreamcast and Wii were similar because they both have 2 or 3 really excellent games, and then the RPG library just drops off a cliff afterwards. Because then you're getting into the Dreamcast Evolution games and the weak Fire Emblem and Paper Mario games for the Wii.
All right, Super Paper Mario, which is all right. It was the decline, but
it's all right. But I mean, so is
Thousand Year Door is extremely much better.
Correct, and that's on a different console than the Wii.
Yeah.
So, Nicholas, what are your thoughts on the Dreamcast versus the Wii?
So, when I think Dreamcast, I never personally owned Dreamcast, and I played Skies of Arcadia when they ported it over. I think it was on the PS2.
GameCube.
And Oh, yeah, it was GameCube. And I also played
thinking of
Grandia
Grandia.
2 on PS2.
Mm-hmm.
So I never actually owned a Dreamcast, but I know those two games are very significant in that Dreamcast library. And I'm kind of in the same boat where I don't really consider the Wii much of an RPG console. When I think Wii, I pretty much think Super Mario Galaxy for me. That was like the reason I got a Wii.
The other stuff.
And,
What about Sakura Wars?
the fifth Sakura Wars game also was on PS2, and man, we haven't had to think about Sakura Wars for a long time until that recent game. Yeah, both of these games have both of these consoles. A lot of their games did appear on other consoles that I think are a little bit seated higher here. I think we're ready to have this come down to a vote, and I won't have people vote in the same order every time. But Alana, what's your pick?
Dreamcast.
All right, Zach, what's your pick?
I have to go with the Wii. Xenoblade trumps all for me.
All right, Stephanie, what is your pick?
Oh, does Zelda count?
RPG Fan does cover Zelda, so it is something you can consider. Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, as much as I love Record of Lotus War and Evolution, weird shit on the Dreamcast, I might actually have to go with the Wii.
All right, Wii.
Zelda.
I think I'll go next.
Yeah.
I really think this comes down to the strongest games on each console, and for me it would be Arcadia and Xenoblade, and that means Dreamcast and Wii are tied 2-2. I pick Dreamcast. Nicholas, do you vote Dreamcast or Wii for the first match of the tournament?
Skies of Arcadia, personally, I think tops the list for me out of all the games we mentioned so far, so I'm going to have to lean into Dreamcast.
All right, Dreamcast over Wii in the very first matchup.
I demand a mistrial.
I feel bad for forgetting Zelda, but Skyward Sword is easily the worst Zelda.
Twilight Princess is good.
I
Twilight
don't.
Princess was a dual release, and I don't like
right.
Twilight Princess. I'm the wrong person to talk to about Zelda.
I think Twilight Princess has like great dungeons, but is otherwise a mediocre Zelda game. And I haven't played Skyward Sword. But I was comfortable voting the Dreamcast ahead because I think that Skies of Arcadia is better than Xenoblade, and Grandia 2 is better than almost all the other Wii RPGs. But anyway, that's behind us now. The Wii is dead.
Wii, bye Xenoblade.
Long live the Wii. Goodbye.
That was not hard. You bigged that up. I'm disappointed.
Alana, when that matchup happened, basically organically, I'm like, oh, Alana loves Xenoblade and Skies of Arcadia. This will be hard for her, but I guess it wasn't. I'm wrong. But anyway, I think we're going to go through the matchups from the 8 seed down to the 1 seed. So I'm going to jump around the bracket a little bit, and we're going to have the 8 versus 9 matchup, which is rather coincidentally 2 contemporary consoles. The Nintendo 3DS against the PlayStation Vita. Now, these are 2 very strong consoles, I think. They both ended up finishing right near the middle of my seating. The Nintendo 3DS has Bravely Default, Bravely Second, a great Zelda game in Link Between Worlds, Shin Megami Tensei 4, a lot of really good ports. And the PlayStation Vita has...
Fire Emblem came to life.
That's right, yeah, Fire Emblem Awakening, the 13th Fire Emblem game, and they're one of their most successful ever. And the PlayStation Vita has a lot of unusual games, Persona 4 Golden...
Every visual novel you ever need to play.
Yeah, an enormous number of visual novels, including all of the Danganronpa and N-Zero Escape games. Also some real weird stuff like I don't know, like Tokiden. And and it was the first console. It was the first release point for a couple of the Legend of Heroes and East games. Falcom has always been a big supporter of the Vita, but it had less support from Sony later in its life cycle. So 3DS versus Vita. Opening remarks. How about you, Zach?
This is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, like Golden is Persona 4 Golden is a tough one to overcome, but I think
Especially because it hasn't been ported yet.
exactly. Yeah, I mean that's the definitive edition of one of the best RPGs. But I think if I think about definitive editions of best RPG, I guess that was DS. No, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. I think I would probably lean 3DS, but just barely.
That's the thing, though, is the 3DS, because of the way it's got the dual screen and the touch screen, you can't replicate a lot of its games. The PlayStation Vita got ported a lot even before and after, the PS3 and the PS4 were around.
Yeah, and I think the PS Vita as well relies a lot on that digital storefront, I'd say.
And a lot of PlayStation titles have no problem going PC.
Yeah.
You've got to think, like, this is when Pokemon went 3D. It's when Fire Emblem essentially became the most popular it's ever been. It's Bravely has got its own fan base, and it's kind of the Square Enix coming back aside where Final Fantasy was drifting off in one direction.
Kirby games.
Yes.
Yes, but I don't. As much as I love Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot, I don't think they're RPGs.
I guess not. But that's your opinion.
Let's try stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, shoot, I forgot. The Vita has Orishika Over My Dead Body, which is a really, really great weird RPG.
Yeah.
Which one was that?
It was a digital only release that is basically you're a clan of Japanese of Japanese nobles that get cursed, so that your offspring only live a few weeks. So you have to you have to plan out your family tree to try to defeat the sorcerer that cursed your family.
I'm sure you do.
It gets real weird. Yeah, you get to play Emma Woodhouse in this game in one of the strangest ways possible. But I thought Orishika was fun, and I mean both the Vita and the 3DS have a lot of really good unique games. But I do, to a degree, look at the Vita as my favorite way to play PSP games.
Right.
We did not review that game, Mike.
Yeah, I think I was probably the only person on the website that played it. But I did bring it up for a feature once.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of this game. Yeah, it's.
And I talked about it on podcasts before.
Mm-hmm.
There's one Wii game we didn't consider that actually got a port on the PS Vita, and that's Muramasa, which
that's
is
right, yeah.
Metroidvania by Vanillaware, which is so good.
Too bad the Wii's already dead in the context of this tournament.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but this came to PS Vita as well.
That's true. That is true.
I don't care what I killed. All right?
Orishika does translate to Over My Dead Body sometimes. So yeah, that's what happened to the Wii. But anyway,
what does it translate to the other time?
Oh, I don't know. It's a Japanese sentence which is a language I cannot speak. But Nicholas, what are your thoughts on 3DS versus Vita?
It's kind of a no contest for me on this one. I own both a 3DS and a Vita, and I feel like all the Vita games that I wanted were just ports.
Right.
You mentioned Muramasa, and that was like the number one reason I got a Vita. And then I know Persona 4 Golden is the shining example of that game.
But it's also an enhanced.
I don't really feel like
it's an enhanced port of a PS2 game. Yeah.
Yeah, is one game enough?
Yeah.
How about that Orishika?
And when I think 3DS, there's just such kind of an expansive library, and it's a little difficult for me to distinguish between just regular DS games and 3DS games because you can play both on there. But I do think A Link Between Worlds. That's a fantastic example. You got the Fire Emblem games. It's got to be 3DS for me.
Yeah, we did mention.
And hey, they have Xenoblade on 3DS, so I can stay alive.
Oh, there you go.
Steffi is happy.
And we mentioned only one Fire Emblem game, but the 3DS has 3 of them. And although I don't have a lot of affection for Fates, like Awakening's awesome, and Echoes was pretty good. And let's see, I mean, there's the two.
It's as bad as everybody said it was. Like, what happened?
Well, the Fates is strange. It's tonally insane, and they tried to recreate the best parts of Awakening, but in ways that felt incredibly forced. Like Fire Emblem Awakening has this Terminator thing where your descendants from the future come back to join you, and they tried to recreate that in Fates with like a hyperbolic time chamber DBZ thing that just did not work.
You also have to buy it like 2.5 times to get the full experience.
Yeah, there's a best ending path that you have to buy if you don't have the like the complete edition, and they sort of Pokemoned it with 2 versions that also didn't really work.
Sometimes that really backfires.
And some but not all of the Mega Man Battle Network games. But I think we're ready for a vote. Nintendo 3DS versus PlayStation Vita. I'm gonna.
You all unanimous?
I'm going to throw in one spoiler vote for the Vita, just because I love Persona 4 Golden a lot, and I know it's not going to win. So yeah, one vote for PlayStation Vita. Stephanie, what are you voting?
3DS.
Alana, how are you voting?
3DS.
Nicholas, how are you voting?
3DS.
All right, 3DS goes ahead 3-1. So the winner of this matchup.
My vote is
Max
irrelevant.
You died with the win back.
You were mathematically eliminated,
Zach
Zach.
sat there.
Your name is last alphabetically, both first name and last name. I apologize.
I know. Not the first time that's happened to me.
Oh, you were always sitting last on the benches, weren't you? When they were like
I
calling
was.
names.
I
Oh,
was.
yeah.
All right, but we have another matchup to discuss. The 7 seed combined Sega Genesis and Sega CD attachment
I don't know anything about either.
against the 10 seed, the Game Boy Advance.
Besides the Dreamcast, we were not a Sega house.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I need Rob Fenner right now.
Rob-
My
here.
friends were
Rob
Sega
Fenner,
people.
Rob Fenner would like tie a bandana over his head and go to war for the Sega CD
I'm
right
gonna
now.
charge through my window in a minute. Like,
I mean, it's an easy vote for me. I don't know.
yeah,
So
well,
anyway,
like-
the Genesis and Sega CD, we have several Shining Force
The
games.
CD actually did have a really good lineup, though. I do
Oh,
know
yeah?
that just based
Yeah,
on
it did.
like,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
first 2 Lunar games,
Yes.
and a lot of other games that Sega kids hold dearly,
Grandia.
and the Grandia was Sega Saturn.
Ah, sorry, I thought we
Yeah.
were talking about that.
Yep,
What are we talking about again?
Sega CD.
Oh,
Sega
CD
CD.
and Genesis.
Yep.
Is
It
that
the Mega,
literally...
was it called the Mega Drive in Canada?
It might
The
have been.
same
It might have been called the Mega Drive, but basically they had they had a CD boot thing that you put into the Genesis slot that that stacked on top of it like a Lego set that allowed for some CD based games to be played on the Genesis. Like Sonic CD was I think the first big one.
Oh
Yep.
my god,
Most
I've
famous.
seen this thing, but I didn't understand what I was looking at, really. I just never had a Sega CD. I was playing it all the time at my friend's house.
Yeah.
Most people didn't.
Yeah. And sorry, it's against the GBA, right?
Yeah, against the GBA. The GBA is a pretty strong lineup of RPGs. Around the
Yeah.
I don't know, around the 6 to 10 seeding list was I think maybe the hardest for me to calculate. But
This is hard the longer I think about it. Actually.
Alana, maybe you might have more Sega CD experience than I do. What do you think are some of the strengths of that system?
I've never owned one, so yeah, you're definitely not asking the right person. Yeah, I unfortunately haven't played any Fantasy Stars or any Shining Forces or any Lunars, so I feel
Oh, man.
yeah, I can't help that. This is the second time in like 3 weeks I have to clarify this. Yeah, I love Sega, like, dearly. The Mega Drive was my first game console ever, so, like, I'm extremely precious about it. But the GBA has Castlevania games and
Yeah.
Mario and Luigi and
Yeah.
Pokemon, and you did a really great episode a few weeks ago showcasing the best of the GBA, and just last week we finished talking about what might be one of the best RPGs ever, Mother 3.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, damn.
yeah, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer for me, this one, unfortunately. I feel bad for the Sega heads, because I am one, and I've let you down.
Well, I'm not a Sega head, but unfortunately, I think I'm leaning GBA as well. Like I think I've only played Shining Force 2, but I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
The Fantasy Star games are really, really good.
Yeah,
but
I
do
haven't
have to
played
give
any-
it
I
to
haven't played
GBA
any of them.
anyways.
Yeah, I
And,
think 4 is like the main standout one. I think 3... I
Final
can't
Fantasy
remember.
Tactics Advance I got weirdly hooked on, even though it's
Oh,
a pain in the
yeah.
ass.
Yeah,
and it
and-
re-released the Breath of Fire games and the Final Fantasies and a whole bunch of great Mario games too. I hate to bring that back into it.
Yeah,
even Kirby, you know.
Well, all right. Well, are we gonna talk about all the Sonic games on Sega Genesis?
Boktai.
Boktai is a little bit of an RPG. We did talk about that on that podcast a few weeks ago. And I mean, but the Sega Genesis, they have Gunstar Heroes. Oh, but GBA has Gunstar Superheroes. Ooh.
Oh, God, I love Gunstar
And
Heroes.
Sega CD did bring us Lunar, which is extremely important to
Oh,
me. But also,
Mega Man Battle Network you wanted to get into.
oh yeah, Mega Man Battle. The weird Mega Man Battle Network is all right. I only played a little bit of one of them, and I don't have a ton of experience. But I thought it was so insane that Battle Network. I think it's 1 through 3 are GBA, then 4 was DS, then 5 went back to GBA. Well, why on earth did they do that?
Did it really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's really confusing. I could be mixing up, and maybe it's Battle Network 6 I'm thinking of.
Like
But-
all Mega Man games, I sort of stopped keeping focus after the 4th one, and they all kind of mushed together for me. But
How dare you?
I love
How
the first 3
dare
Mega. I'm
you.
sorry.
Actually, that's the wrong person.
I know. I'm sorry. But I think Mega Man Battle Network 1 and all of them. I actually thought they were really fun. They were so unique, and I love the way they play.
I only played a little bit
I
of the
like this
first
whole
one.
kind of physical online space that they actually worked in.
Yeah, and a lot of people have are really
their energy.
excited about the old Battle Network games. Like whenever there's a mention of one or post about them, like a couple fans will come out of the networks like, oh, Mega Man Battle Network. It's popular.
It's getting like a copycat indie game soon, and people are psyched as hell, and so am I for it.
It's already out. It's called One Step from Eden. It's apparently really, really good. It came out in March.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. So
I'll
did we review that?
I don't think so.
Oh,
no.
shoot. I'll have to do a little bit of research on that. I'm worried that maybe this was my first major seeding mistake of the tournament.
So I think I might be in the minority on this one. Now I could be speaking just from a point of ignorance because I'm less of a handheld gamer and more of like, I enjoy sitting in front of the TV.
It's all good. So live your truth, Nicholas. What you got?
So GBA, I know we mentioned several ports, and again, I'm trying heavily not to consider ports because I know we're trying to focus on native games. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to Sega, all those titles are very, very iconic in their field. I mean, Shining Force, Phantasy Star, and Lunar are three, in my opinion, very, very important RPG franchises. So I'm actually leaning towards the Genesis and CD.
That's one vote for Genesis and CD. I'll vote next. I thought this was going to be a close one, but I'm still leaning GBA. Those three Castlevania games.
They're like some of the best.
Yeah, Mario and Luigi, and recently playing Mother 3 and adoring it may have swung it for me. I think that maybe Mother 3 and Mario and Luigi are better than any Genesis RPG that I've played.
Oh my god, I also had a Tactics Ogre game on
But,
it.
hey, Zach, the Lunar games on Sega CD and PS1 are very different, and I played those on PS1.
I know.
And spoiler
Yo,
alert,
it also had a Tactics Ogre game too, so I got a shout out to them.
Oh yeah, Night of Lotus. That is a pretty good strategy RPG. I like it more. I like it more than Final Fantasy Tactic Advance.
And there's a Lunar game on the GBA too.
Lunar Legend is a sort of a weak remake of Lunar 1.
It is indeed.
But all right, and anyway, I'm voting GBA. The tie it's a 1-1 tie right now. Zach, how do you vote?
I can't vote against Lunar. I'm voting Sega CD.
All right.
I refuse.
So we have Sega 2, Nintendo 1. Steph, how do you vote?
GBA.
It's tied at 2-2. Alana, you're the deciding vote. Nintendo Game Boy Advance or Sega Genesis and CD?
I think Castlevania swings it for me, so GBA.
All right, the winner is
suckers.
GBA. Our first upset. The 10 seed beat the 7 seed.
Ugh.
Sorry, I get competitive.
No, it's all right. We're trying to replace the hole in my heart that sports left when they all got canceled. So yeah, I'm all about the spirit of competition for this episode. So let's move on. We have the 6 versus 11 matchup. The Sony PlayStation Portable and the Nintendo Switch.
What's the 11th seed?
The Switch is the 11th seed, only because its library is considerably younger than the PSP. Like when you list all the RPGs available for both systems, I think the PSP is at least higher in quantity. But Nintendo Switch has a lot going for it. None of us have played Paper Mario: The Origami King yet, but there's a lot of other good stuff on the Switch, including but not limited to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Octopath Traveler, very good versions of Ys 8, and a couple other ports. And the Sony PSP has the first several Trails in the Sky games for the Legend of Heroes series by Falcom, Ys 7, Persona 3 Portable. A few of the first really good Monster Hunter games. There's a lot of good games on both systems. That's right. Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, Dissidia, which is maybe more fighting game than RPG.
Let Us Clean Together, Tactics Ogre. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We're playing that for the podcast next month. How dare I forget it?
I heard "Let Us Clean Together" and that just put a wonderful visual in my head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am alone in this house, so when I vacuum, it's "Let Us Clean Alone."
Aww.
Yeah.
But anyway, so opening remarks, PSP versus Switch. What are your thoughts, Steph?
Oh, don't come to me with this one. I have no idea. I'm actually weirdly leaning to the PSP maybe because I know I've put in a dumb amount of hours into that one. And it's got Valkyrie Profile.
Yeah, that's true. The PSP is one of the strongest port lineups of any of these.
Again, they're all ports, though.
Like Isoth and Felghana, you have really good ports of the first 2 Disgaea games. The best ports of Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics. It's a lot of other standalone Square Enix games. It was a bit of a port machine, but it was a really good handheld.
I'm starting to realize all of these things are port machines.
I was going to say the Switch is probably equally or more of a port machine, isn't it? At this point, like the only unique ones it's got are Octopath Traveler is not even unique anymore to it. Like it's on PC.
But also like
Xenoblade 2, and I don't like Xenoblade 2 that much, so maybe
Interesting. Nicholas, what are your thoughts on these two systems?
This one's really tough for me because I have fond memories about the PSP and the Switch. Well, I guess, Switch is pretty recent, so recent memories. PSP, definite port machine. This one I actually think comes...
and Second Evolution, a remake and a port.
Well, I would, Second Evolution. I think they're both remakes, but Second Evolution is close to being a port, while First Departure is a near total remake. I mean, the Super Famicom Star Ocean 1 is almost unplayable. Like the enemy targeting is so bad in that thing, and really we're calling these port machines and almost in a denigrating way. It shouldn't be that. Like it's Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions is a markedly different experience than Final Fantasy Tactics on the PS1. So even though it's technically a port, we can evaluate them separately. It's different than a virtual console or playing a PSP game on your Vita. And as such, I think that these are both really strong libraries, even though they do have ports featured heavily. And also, PSP is what introduced me to Monster Hunter, and I don't know if that's a positive or a negative in its estimation.
Which has Breath of the Wild.
It does.
Breath of the Wild is excellent, but that was a cross release with Wii U, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I don't know how you want to evaluate that. Then, does it have that much sway?
Yeah.
I know how to evaluate it. Pick which one you think is better and vote on it.
I don't know how to vote.
Yeah, so I actually think I swayed my thought process just in the middle of that because I was actually going to lean Switch because I enjoy playing that more. Like it's just, I think accessibility-wise, like it's a larger screen, it's brighter. But there are so many, you mentioned Final Fantasy Tactics, there's Tactics Ogre, all the Star Ocean games. I think in terms of library, I have to lean PSP.
Yeah, Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition is on Switch. I don't think there is a Dragon Quest natively on the PSP.
No.
I don't think there is.
No,
I don't think so either.
Yeah, because even the Monsters games were on DS and 3DS, not PSP.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a little bit challenging for me, but let's have it go to a vote. Nick, is your vote PSP?
PSP.
Okay. I think my vote is also PSP. Alana, what is your pick?
I'm going to go Switch, I think, just because I do think that larger screen and the bigger console and the ability to have it on both ways. Like, I know
it's also not even done yet.
Exactly.
That's true, yeah.
And I do play it a lot. I'm not a huge handheld gamer, so my PSP was more of a PS1 classic machine.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that is 2 for PSP and 1 for Switch. Zach, what is your vote?
I think I have to go with Switch. I think that there are, in terms of native games, there are 2 native games on the Switch that are better than anything on the PSP.
Humor me, which?
I think Breath of the Wild, and I like Xenoblade 2 a lot, more than Alana.
Mm.
So I think that those 2, and it's also just, I'm also not really much of a handheld gamer. I think I'm going to have to give it to the Switch because of that.
All right, so we're all tied up, and it comes down to Steph. What do you pick between the PlayStation Portable and the Nintendo Switch?
For what it's worth, this really hurts, but it's the Switch.
Ooh.
I vote for Switch. Give me Switch.
Our second upset of the bracket. The Switch outlasts the PSP. Very interesting.
We're going to make some people very unhappy with that, I think.
That's fine.
Screw you.
You can't make anybody happy.
Email all your salt to retro@rpgfan.com.
I'm waiting for it.
I want the smoke. Okay, so the Switch defeats the PSP in the 6 versus 11 matchup. Now we're going to go to the 5 versus 12 matchup. The second youngest console in the whole list, the PlayStation 4, against the oldest of them all, the Nintendo Entertainment System. PS4 versus NES.
Ooh.
The PS4 has been around for about 5.5 years. Among its standout games include Persona 5, Dragon Quest XI, Nier Automata, and many others, including some character action games like Horizon Zero Dawn and Assassin's Creed Origins that are borderline RPGs that RPG Fan does cover. And then you have the Nintendo NES, the oldest system in this entire list by a significant margin. We have the first 3 Final Fantasy games, the first 2 Zelda games, the first 4 Dragon Quest games, and many other classic RPGs. So I'll provide the opening remarks here. The NES is so important. Mega Man, which isn't an RPG, I know, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, so many very important beginnings to many series there. But I don't think I ever want to play an NES game ever again, unless it's like a Mega Man.
I could be fine with that.
Unless it's like a Mega Man game made after 1988. And the PlayStation 4, I think, has been the strongest console of the current cycle, even though its story is not quite over yet. And I consider a few of its games, especially Dragon Quest XI and Nier Automata, among my favorites of the past decade. So, and it's also like, I mean, we're using the phrase port machine a little too often. It has a lot of really good ports of both PS3 games and upcoming and other games moving forward. I think it has a. I think they're putting Okami on it again. we're getting the first Nier on it pretty soon again. The PS4 beats the NES, and the NES has its age working against it somewhat, even though it's a very important console with a lot of good RPGs on it.
Right, and I think as well, like, where can you not get a better version of Final Fantasy 1 or 2 on any other console? Like, the NES is super important, and without it, we wouldn't have Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, all those other great franchises that we've got. But they've been bettered in other ways, in other ports, in other versions, on other consoles, and great, the foundation's there, but isn't the point of everything afterwards to make it better? And that's exactly what it does.
No one's really talking about the MSX version of Dragon Quest 1, that's for sure.
No. But like the PS4, Nier Automata, hands down, for me, makes that console like my favorite console of the RPGs this generation, personally.
That's a good one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I owned an NES when it came out. I played all those RPGs when they were coming out, and like my fondness for the NES is much stronger than my fondness for the PS4, like way stronger. But it's not even close, unfortunately. I mean, there's a better Dragon Quest game. There's a better Final Fantasy. I mean, like
it's like if my grandpa came up to me and said, "Email, let me teach you about Morse code."
Right. Morse code's great, but the NES was great at the time, and I played some great Zelda games on there. I mean, it's hard for me to vote against it, but the PS4 is just better. I mean,
it's nice that we're all talking fondly about it.
Yeah, the NES has this moment right now, but I don't think its moment's going to last very much longer. Let's bring this to a vote. I'm voting PS4. Nicholas, what do you vote between PS4 and NES?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, it's so important to note the significance of the NES, but, if I were to sit down and choose, if I were to hold up an NES game and a PS4 game, what would I want to play at the time? Chances are it's going to be a PS4 title, because it's just been so, modernized and updated, and some of the RPGs on NES are kind of difficult to, the systems are still rough around the edges.
We forgot about Mother 1, too.
Come on.
You forgot about Mother 1. Maybe some of us were avoiding bringing up Mother 1.
But it's PS4 for me, definitely.
All right, PS4 is ahead of NES 2-0. Stephanie, please vote next.
I'm giving the NES a kindness vote.
All right, the PS4 is ahead of the NES 2-1. Zach, how do you vote?
I have to vote PS4.
All right, Alana, your vote has been mathematically eliminated. The PS4 moves on. Okay, so the 5-12 upset, sometimes a classic upset choice in the NCAA basketball tournament, went with the 5 over the 12 this time. Uh-huh. So now we're going to go to the 4 seed versus the 13 seed. The Nintendo DS against the Xbox 360.
Oh my god, that's a good one.
So
that's cruel.
Yeah, so these games were these consoles were mostly contemporaries, with I think the DS landing a little ahead of the 360. But the DS has it's a really good port machine, but also has a lot of good native games on its own. Mario.
See, that's why I hate when people say like it's a port machine, because it's
we've only said it. We've always said it 15 times on this podcast so far. Only. But the Nintendo DS has 2 Mario and Luigi games, Radiant, Historia.
gamers, if you want to sound impressive to your friends and they say it's a port machine, just say it all is, because it's true.
Everything's a port machine except for the NES on this list. And the Xbox 360 was one of the more in that really strong generation of consoles, the PS Wii 60 generation. Weirdly, that generation lasted 7 or 8 years, which I think is the longest lasting of all of the what we traditionally label as console generations. So the 360 had a lot of staying power, and among its most successful games are the first 2 Fable games, unless the first Fable was on Xbox OG, which I might be my bad. So yeah, we have Fable 2, the entire Mass Effect trilogy, the first Dragon Age game, and Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey. There was a significant number of good RPGs on the
Tales
Xbox
of
360.
Vesperia.
Yeah, Tales of Vesperia was started on the 360.
That was a
that's correct.
contentious one for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. The DS did have a couple Tales games, but the less we mention those, the better.
Definitely.
Innocence, Hearts, and Tempest. three of the bottom Tales games that I've played. But anyway, the DS versus the 360. Opening remarks. How about you, Nicholas? What are your thoughts on these two systems?
This one's a bit of a challenge for me. 360. When I think RPGs for that system, outside of Mass Effect, I think a lot of actually mediocre RPGs. And I think
it did
part
have
of that
didn't
is
it?
it had like Infinite Undiscovery. It had Last Remnant, which by itself is a decent game, but it had terrible frame rates. It just wasn't like the system wasn't ready for it. It did have Dark Souls, but
this is hard.
PS3. I know we're not talking about PS3, but I started that journey with Demon Souls. So
yeah.
and a lot of the best 360 games did have PS3 ports. Not all of them, but many of them.
Yeah.
But now for DS for me, you've got I think there were 2 Zelda games on DS, Spirit Tracks and
Phantom
Hourglass. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Phantom Hourglass.
I think that's another one, though. Less said about those, the better.
It also, the DS had at least 5 or 6 Dragon Quest games, including ports of 4 through 6, and the only way to play Dragon Quest 9. It had the first 4 Professor Layton games, 3 of which are great. It has 4 Phoenix Wright games, or I should say Ace Attorney games. The DS was quietly a visual novel powerhouse. Also Hotel Dusk.
Yeah.
Hotel Dusk,
Yep.
999. It's Last Window.
It was a hidden gem machine. There was even a lot of Japanese-only games that there was a great effort to get fan translated because that system was kind of broken.
Yeah, include. I played fan translations of 2 of those Tales games I mentioned before on the DS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also
Dawn
the
of Sorrow,
Etrian Odyssey games.
That's right. Etrian Odyssey began on the regular DS. We didn't really mention any of them for the 3DS segment, other than Persona Q, which I'm literally playing one of the Persona Q games right now.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, they're all right. You have to put aside, don't have expectations of the Persona Q games of a dialogue and character level of the main series Persona games. Chie and Yukiko are not the extremely good female friendship that they are in Persona 4. It's kind of like Yukiko giggling and Chie kicking the air and talking about meat. But from
a Kim Daisy comic.
Yeah, a little bit. But from a gameplay standpoint, I think the Persona Q games are really, really fun. It's Persona characters interacting together in a dream scenario, which is something I enjoy as a big Persona fanboy. But back to the DS. Again, I think that Bowser's Inside Story, Radiant Historia, versus the best 360 games, like Mass Effect, maybe Dragon Age Origins. I think maybe the 360 has maybe they're sort of equal at the top, or even the 360 has sort of a stronger lineup at the top, but the DS goes so much deeper than the RPG lineup of the 360 that
Ghost Trick.
And I love Ghost Trick. I think my pick my pick is regular DS, but I'm willing to discuss this a little more. What are some good 360 games we haven't mentioned yet? Maybe
you brought up Lost Odyssey, and Lost Odyssey is something I have a ton of affection for because. I mean, actually, funnily enough, Nick mentioned the frame rates in Infinite Undiscovery or The Last Remnant, I think. Lost Odyssey also had a similar problem with some of its spells where the game would just chug. But I think Lost Odyssey has some incredible writing in it. Like, those short story segments are so beautiful. And I think visually
really sad that Mistwalker is really quiet these days.
they're mobile RPGs almost exclusively now, which is,
Makes money.
But, I have a ton of affection for Lost Odyssey. I just think it was a really... almost like the true Final Fantasy 13, maybe? We haven't even talked about Final Fantasy 13, which came out on Xbox.
That's right, yeah.
360 but PS3. And also Tales of Vesperia is one of my all-time favorites in that whole series. Because I didn't play many. I haven't played most DS RPGs. I've only played Pokemon and Dragon Quest V, obviously. And I love those games, and I respect the library of the DS quite a lot.
Geez, we didn't even mention the Pokemon games on GBA.
Yeah, we didn't. I mean,
Those were really good.
I prefer Black and White. That's probably my favorite gen.
I mean, the DS has Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and Black White, Black 2, White 2, which are, I think, maybe the best Pokemon games. Maybe?
The DS lineup is the strongest for sure.
Yeah, so like I love the Xbox 360, but I think if I didn't have an older brother that had an Xbox for certain games, I probably wouldn't have played any of those ones that I've listed. And the DS, just looking at it, I can, without even playing half of them. Yeah.
Oh, man, and maybe I'm the only person that's played these, but I really had a moment with those first 4 Ace Attorney and first 4 Professor Layton games. I devoured all of them.
Phoenix when it came to the DS, right? Like, it wasn't a GBA title for us.
Yeah, the first 3 are GBA games, but then they remade all of them for the DS and even added details, especially touchscreen interaction to the DS versions of each of them. So even though the first 3 are GBA, I think of them as DS games. Especially because, I mean, like, playing those with touch controls, I think is, like, an important memory of them to me.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And Professor Layton's great. I love those first 3 games.
The thing is, Professor Layton, I think the 4th one was a little weak, but each of the first 3 is better than the last. And and there's some like crying your eyes out moments in the 3rd one.
Oh, God,
it's Professor Layton in the Unwound Future is one of the best puzzle games of the past 20 years.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I think we're about ready. We're about ready to vote. Zach, what do you vote between DS and 360?
I have to vote DS. I mean, the library is just so deep.
All right, Nicholas, what's your vote?
It is DS for me.
Oh yeah.
And Alana, how are you going?
Oh, I'm going with DS.
All right, that's a clean sweep. Steph and I don't even get to have our votes vocalized.
If I can just add, though, the 360 was great for a lot of non-RPGs.
True. Yeah.
I know it doesn't count, but I still want to give it that little tip of the hat.
Yeah, the 360 was a good console.
Yeah.
DS can stand for Dark Souls, but in this case, it stands for dual screens. I'm afraid.
Dawn of Sorrow.
Jeez, there's 2 really good Castlevania games, 3 really good Castlevania games on the DS. I completely forgot about Portrait of Ruin or PORNDS.
Portrait of Ruin might be the best one.
I don't know. I would go Order of Ecclesia. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's actually really up there. I put that one for another time. This October, let's do a Castlevania off.
Ooh, yeah, sure, we can do that. Alana, you down?
Yay!
Always.
All right, but anyway, let's stick to June for now. We have 3 more matchups to go, and next comes our 3 versus 14 matchup. 2 console contemporaries again: the PlayStation 2 versus the Nintendo GameCube.
Oh no!
This is the one that's bothering you?
The PlayStation 2, very strong RPG lineup. We have Final Fantasy X, Dragon Quest VIII, Persona 3 and Persona 4, Shin Megami Tensei 3, and many, many more that I'm not mentioning right now.
GameCube has nothing but very few, but all of the best ones.
Yeah, the GameCube really close.
Yeah, the GameCube has Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door, Tales of Symphonia, two very good Zelda games in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, Baten Kaitos and its sequel. Let me see, I'm probably forgetting Fire Emblem Path of Radiance.
Yeah.
Did you say the port? Did you say the magic port?
Skies of Arcadia Legends.
Thank you.
The magic port.
that was it.
Oh, I love it.
But I don't know. I mean, I think the PS2 is one of the real contenders to win it all here. It has one of the strongest lineups ever. The Atlas developed at least 7 games for the system that are all really strong. Square Enix had a really good lineup with a Final Fantasy X and 12, and a online enabled version of Final Fantasy 11. Dragon Quest 8, which is an all-time favorite of mine personally. The Shadow Hearts trilogy, which we've talked about on this podcast before.
Dark Cloud 1 and 2, the latter more.
Dark Cloud and Dark Chronicle, if you use the European nomenclature.
Yes.
Again, these are 2 really, really strong lineups. I think the GameCube is a little top heavy. Like like once you get past the top 8 or so, it's kind of hard to list. But the PS2 goes like 15 deep at
Where's
least.
Peter to tell us Yu-Gi-Oh! The False-Bound Kingdom was worth it?
Are we really going to talk about Peter and the PS2 without mentioning a certain other series? Alana, isn't Kingdom Hearts 2 one of the ones people say is good?
Kingdom Hearts 2 is probably the best one. It is better on PS3 and 4, but Kingdom Hearts 2 is really good.
We let the PSP die against the Switch without mentioning Birth by Sleep, which I secretly love, even though I voted for PSP.
Even though Birth by Sleep's one of the better ones.
Yeah.
I love that one.
So, Zach, what are your thoughts on PS2 versus GameCube?
I mean, I think it has to be PS2. I mean, the GameCube has great games. I love lots of the ones that we just talked about. The Paper Mario one, I've dabbled in a little bit, and I've played some others. But PS2, I mean, it's just, you've got 2 of the better Final Fantasy games. You've got arguably the best Dragon Quest game, and then you go 15, 20 deep. It's just, I'm sorry, I don't think that you can touch the PS2's library. The GameCube just can't.
Steph, what were you going to say?
I totally almost agree, except that I don't. Just because, I don't know, a lot of the PS2 stuff has been kind of transferred over to other systems. And Dragon Quest, I don't care. The Persona games 3 got a better version on the portable, the definitive one in my opinion, and 4 got golden on the PS Vita. And Baten Kaitos Origins and the other one being the precursor to a whole bunch of Monolith, just absolutely knocking it out of the park for me. Right. And Tales of Symphonia and Skies of Arcadia Legends and
Skies of Arcadia was better on the Dreamcast, and I think that Tales of Symphonia was better on the PS2.
The PS2. Oh, that's right. The PS3. They released the.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Japan got it on PS2 though, didn't they?
That's true. Yeah, and the PS3 port is the PS2 version.
We never saw that though.
And also the two really, really good Zelda games in the GameCube both got Wii U ports. It's hard. I think I'm leaning one way, but these are, I don't know. This is a really strong pair. Nicholas, what are your thoughts on PS2 versus GameCube?
So, off the bat, I'll concede that GameCube does have some great RPGs, and Wind Waker is my second favorite Zelda. But when you just consider the sheer library of RPGs on PS2, 2 series that weren't touched yet, Wild Arms.
That's right. Wild Arms 3 is very good.
Suikoden.
Oh, yeah.
And we have podcasted about Suikoden 5 and Wild Arms 3 in the past 7 months, and both of those are really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Xenosaga 2.
So for me,
I was gonna say that's the only one we got over here.
Yeah, weren't Xenosaga on both systems?
Xenosaga's been ported to DS in Japan only, 1 and 2, I think.
But I thought they were both PS2 and GameCube overall. Though.
No,
okay. What?
No.
You only got the second Xenosaga?
Yep.
That's bizarre.
Didn't North America get them both on both systems? Am I hallucinating?
No, they did
no.
not.
Wow.
PS2 only.
I keep forgetting that.
Okay. I could have sworn Xenosaga was on GameCube.
There's also the Dot Hack series on PS2.
Oh, that's right, yeah. They made at least 6 of those, maybe more. I'd have to check a list. Right?
I think 7. There was 4 in the original set, and then 3 in GU.
Right, okay. I thought they were 2 separate trilogies, but I guess there was 4 in one of them. That's yeah, I mean, I think we may have mentioned 30 PS2 games just in this short discussion.
But you missed one of the most important.
Oh no! What?
Smash Brothers Melee. There are RPG characters in it.
All right, but the PS2 had Jade Cocoon 2 and Steambot Chronicles, which are two RPGs that I never would have heard of if it weren't for our coworkers Marcos and Leona. but are both in my PS2 CD wallet. Or I'm sorry, DVD wallet. My mistake. But anyway, all right. If I'm talking about what's in my DVD wallet, maybe it's time to vote. PS2 versus GameCube. I'll cast the first vote. I am voting Sony PS2. Alana, what's your choice?
It kills me to get rid of my little purple lunchbox, but the PS2.
All right, Steph, what's your vote?
I'm going for the GameCube because I'm a Nintendo loser.
All right, PS2 is ahead of GameCube 2-1. Nicholas, what is your vote?
It's definitely got to be PS2.
Damn it!
All right, PS2 has it 3-1. Apologies to Zach. We have two matchups left. The number 2 seed versus the number 15 seed. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System against the PlayStation 3.
Oh, this is easy.
Yeah, these last two are going to be a little bit one-sided because we are into the 1 and 2 seeds next. The SNES has a couple of my favorite RPGs ever: Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Seiken Densetsu 3, Tales of Phantasia, Earthbound. More than I'm not mentioning. The PlayStation 3 is no slouch, though. It has Demon's Souls, the first couple Dark Souls games, Tales of Grace's F, and Tales of Xillia. Let's see, I know there's more that I'm forgetting here. The first Nier.
Ni no Kuni?
Yeah, the first Ni no Kuni, that's correct. We didn't mention Ni no Kuni 2 on the PS4, how dare we?
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
The mixed reactions tells you what.
The Final Fantasy 13 trilogy was on PS3. There's a lot of good games on that system. But I'm definitely leaning a certain way. But Zach, what are your thoughts on SNES versus PS3?
I mean, it's not even close. I mean, I think that you can go maybe 5 or 6 deep with the Super Nintendo before you hit anything on the PS3 that comes close, especially with things that are exclusive. I mean, if you're keeping in mind the idea that the Super Nintendo games at the time, that was what you had to pick. And Chrono Trigger, Lufia 2, which we didn't mention.
Which we have podcasted about.
Indeed. I mean, there are so many. The Super Nintendo is probably would have been my overall number 1 seed, so the PS3 doesn't rate.
I did have a thoughts between the number 1 and number 2 seed. I thought there was a clear top 2, but I ended up putting the SNES second. Again, these seedings were semi-random, and we have had a couple upsets already. Alana, SNES versus PS3.
Yeah, I'm the same. Super Nintendo, again, all those RPGs you mentioned, probably all of them are in my top 20 games of all time. There's no contest. The PS3, I don't really play Western RPGs, so that's where my gaps kind of lie with Dark Souls, Demon's Souls,
right, yeah.
Mass Effect, Dragon Age, things like that. And they're probably all, they're all really excellent in their own way. But I think someone just puts a copy of Chrono Trigger in front of me and I'm just going to sit down and play it for 20 hours and have the biggest smile on my face. And
wave it in front of you.
Chrono Trigger is the perfect video game. It is the only video game I have no problems with. I cannot fault it, I'm afraid. And for that alone, I think the SNES wins for me.
Nicholas, what are your thoughts here? I'm worried we might have a clean sweep in the SNES's favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I do love the PS3, but I mean, there's just so many legacy games on Super Nintendo. Not rehashing what we've already mentioned, but just in addition, you got Secret of Evermore, you got the Quintet trilogy.
I forgot about that.
These are just powerhouse games. So I have to go Super Nintendo.
Well, let's talk about some other games we haven't mentioned. I only mentioned
Terranigma is literally one of the coolest games I've ever played.
Yeah, I only mentioned Final Fantasy VI, but there was 3 really good final games on the on the SNES and Secret of Mana and Seiken Densetsu 3, ActRaiser, which is quietly one of the coolest.
Dragon Quest V.
Dragon Quest 5 and 6.
Breath of Fire 1 and 2?
That's right. There was 3 Fire Emblem games on the SNES, 2 of which were really good, although they were Japan only. The SNES's lineup is so strong it's almost untouchable.
I do like those PS3 Tales games, but they're definitely the turn of that series is kind of decline, I would say.
There are a lot of good. I love Dragon Age Awakening, and I'm sorry, excuse me. Dragon Age Oranges, which had a spin-off called Dragon Age Awakening, which was also good. But Dragon Age Oranges is the important one in that
Stop
series.
saying that now too.
I almost corrected you earlier.
No. Oh, when I said Assassin's Creed Origins, my bad.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, inside jokes aside, I love the PS3, but my choice is clear here. Let's just vote. I vote SNES.
SNES.
That's 2.
SNES.
That's 3. Well, let's go all the way to 5. Alana?
SNES.
Nick?
SNES. Yep, SNES.
5-0 sweep in favor of the Super Nintendo.
Gosh, yeah.
And
It's gotta be.
You might remember at the beginning of the podcast, we were determining the 16 seed in a special play-in matchup. So we know that the 16 seed is the Dreamcast, but what's it going up against?
Oh no!
The PlayStation. The PS1 versus the Sega Dreamcast.
I walked right into this.
All right, Alana, give us your opening remarks.
I love Skies of Arcadia, but the PS1 is so perfect, isn't it? Like, yeah, I probably had a similar deliberation to you when I was trying to think what you'd put as 1 and 2. Like, I knew it would be the Super Nintendo and the PS1, but I didn't know what order you'd put them in. And in my head, the PS1 was always number 1 just because, yeah, the Super Nintendo's got a big library, but you know what's got a bigger library? PlayStation 1.
The PlayStation 1's, the depth of that library is insane.
Yeah.
Well, let's go into it a little bit. Just in the Square Enix realm alone, we have 3 Final Fantasy games, 2 Parasite Eve games, 1 really good Dragon Quest game, Vagrant Story, Final Fantasy Tactics,
Legend of Mana.
Legend of Mana. Now let's step outside the Square box a little bit. 2
Chocobo
really...
Racing.
Yeah, okay, sure, that one too. Brave Fencer Musashi, why not? We got 2 really good Breath of Fire games, 2 really good Suikoden games, a couple very good Atlas games, including Persona 2 Duology.
Yeah.
Oh boy, where do I go next? Come on, throw some PS1 games at me.
Oh, jeez.
Wild Arms 1 and 2. Yeah, Grandia.
Grandia 1.
Wild Arms
Grandia
1 and
1,
2, yeah.
Thousand Arms.
Tales games. I love Tales of Destiny, Tales of
Tales.
Eternia.
Oh god, I love Tales of Eternia.
Symphony of the Night.
Man, Thousand Arms. Thousand Arms. Oh, Alana. Thousand Arms, quietly one of the first dating sim RPGs.
Chrono Cross.
Oh yeah, maybe that indie title, Chrono Cross, sure. Threads of Fate.
Final Fantasy Tactics is still one of the greatest games.
Star Ocean 2. Yeah, oh god, I love Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Lunar.
Star Ocean 2 is my favorite. Lunar, yeah, we got 2
yeah,
awesome
god,
Lunar
the
games.
2 Lunar 1 and 2 complete are
Rhapsody.
amazing.
Adventure.
Rhapsody musical adventure.
God.
Oh man, if there are 2 things I want more in RPGs, it's kissing and musical numbers.
I think you're actually being honest.
You are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think you are.
No lies present, no lies detected.
Sega Frontier, sort of.
Yeah, you've got Saga Frontier.
Oh, Saga Frontier.
Are we saying that ironically or unironically?
That's good. I like it.
Unironically.
There's kind of an RPG mode in Street Fighter Alpha 3, huh? Right? Okay, maybe not. Okay, maybe
but
not.
Yes.
There is a mode where you gain levels and can customize your moves, but that's definitely not in the spirit of this podcast. Otherwise, we would have talked about the Soul Calibur story mode in this round also, because I mean the Dreamcast is really an excellent machine, but again, like it has like maybe 4 really good RPGs, and the PS1 like
20.
Yeah,
25.
More maybe.
Yeah. Even
if you like take away 2 of the best PS1 ones by mentioning Beyond the Beyond, I think it still beats the Dreamcast. Are we ready to vote?
Yeah,
I think so.
So I vote PS1. Stephanie?
Yeah, PS1.
Alana?
PS1.
Oh yeah.
Let's go the distance this time, Zach.
PS1.
And Nicholas.
PS1.
All right. So the number 1 seed beats the number 16 seed, which is true of almost every NCAA game. I know. Of course, we all remember when in the women's tournament in the early 90s when Harvard beat Stanford in the 16-1 matchup. I understand.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. This is a sports reference that listeners who are aware of my fandom proclivities might understand is a sensitive subject for me. Wait a second. Nicholas, you're from North Carolina. Do you have a college basketball team you support?
Not really.
Okay, all right. North Carolina, listeners, is a college basketball hotbed. I wasn't sure if Nicholas was a fan or not. Brad, one of the RPG fan media staff, is a big UNC fan, and he and I have talked mess at every single MagFest we've attended together, which is a total delight. Retro Encounter loves you, Brad. But anyway, Retro Encounter also loves Alana, Stephanie, Zach, and Nicholas. Thank you so much for getting this first round straightened up. We are going to come back next week and deal with the Essential 8. When I should mention that the matchups for the Essential 8 are PS1 versus 3DS, PS4 versus regular DS, PS2 versus Switch, and GBA versus SNES. So those are the 8 games. Those are the 8 games and 4 matchups we are going to be deciding next week. But we're going to split. Yeah, but we're going to split this podcast into 2 parts because it will. If we combined it at once, it would definitely be 2.5 hours. So, listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this experimental tournament adventure podcast. I don't know really how to describe it. This is an idea that Steph proposed several months ago that we thought that I thought was the perfect time to discuss it because of because of missing sports and needing something to put in the podcast for June. But next week on the podcast, we're going to begin our Yakuza 0 episodes. I've put about 10 hours into that game so far. Why didn't anyone tell me that the entire game is about real estate? That's kind of great. I'm having so much fun, muscling people out of my territory in 1988 Tokyo.
So you didn't read Joe's feature on Yakuza Kiwami and about the money side of things, then?
I read about that a little bit, but it's like money and business is important in Kiwami too. But in Yakuza 0, you are literally like battling other landlords and strategically buying properties. It's the game, and the center of the story is an empty lot that it can't be bought by anyone because the owner of it's gone missing. It's the game is about real estate.
I mean, you could tell me this could be a lie, but I'd still believe you.
It's about real estate and Japanese gangsters, but I'm having a lot of fun with it, and we're going to discuss Yakuza 0 over 2 episodes in June. But listeners, if you want to email the podcast directly, you can do so at talking to retro@rpgfan.com. Tell us why we're wrong. Tell us why we're right. Suggest games for us to cover in the future. Please email us because I get maybe a few emails a month and would welcome more. But you can also engage with RPG Fan by commenting on our message boards, visiting the Facebook page, our Instagram page, of which Steph is one of the architects, our Twitter page, our Discord server, our Twitch channel. Yeah, there's something streaming on that Twitch channel every day. And there's also 3 other podcasts, Random Encounter, Rhythm Encounter, and Phoenix Edge, all with their specific niches and specific hosts, one of which may even get an episode in 2020. We'll see. But you can review Retro Encounter and those other 3 podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, however you choose to listen to us. We love feedback. Please give us all the feedback we can stand. But listeners, excuse me, I'm not addressing listeners. Panelists, how can the listeners engage with us directly? Starting with you, Zach, what do you got?
You can email me at zachw@rpgfan.com, or you can find me on Discord at zachw.
And Alana.
You can find me on Twitter at Alana Hagues, or you can email me at alanah@rpgfan.com.
And Nicholas, how can listeners find you?
I have an Instagram page. It's BeoXXVI, BeoXXVI.
All right, and Steph.
You can reach me, usually most places on the internet. I'm on a lot of places on the internet as Dice SMS.
And Steph, you are our social media manager, so if people are...
you can always talk to me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I'm sometimes on Discord, but usually if you want to chat with me, I'm usually on those 3.
Right on. And listeners, if you want to reach me directly, you can email me at... Sollosi@rpgfan.com, or on Twitter I am at Evoker for Dogs, sometimes at The Real Monsoon, other times, and on the RPG Fan Discord page I am Monsoon Mike. So this is only part 1 of our tournament. We mentioned the matchups for part 2. You can hear the results. What is the best console for RPGs as determined by RPG Fans Retro Encounter next week. Thank you, good night, and good luck.
Been a little while, but I'm still battling, moving fast while you just prattling. No time for me, no tangling. Hit you in the spot with no angling.
Not a princess.
A lot of anger in it.
The cutie girl from oh no, don't you know?
Flash rhymes, coated with spangles. Add some sounds in the times. Wangles, 3 dots connect to rectangles. Just like music sounds connect and rambles.
You can't run away.
Hell nah, no man can run away.